Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Desi and I am here to go down the black hole or the rabbit hole that is Inceldom. And this one is called My Blackpilled Origin Story. It just came out a day ago, so it's fresh off the presses. And I've listened to about half of it, and it's very interesting, and I relate to this individual a lot, especially when I went through this sort of thing. He's referring to like his 7th and 8th grade, early ninth grade years. And there's a lot that resonates. And I'm wondering what the conclusion's going to be, because I'm pretty sure it's like the birth of an incel sort of saga. But it has to do with like one-itis and like first crushes and everything else. And it really captivated me. So let's get going on it. I'll probably end up playing most of it, because this is extremely well done. Like, this individual has a lot of talent. And I think he has a bright future ahead of him, because I believe he's only like 20, 21 years old at the beginning of this video. So I think he's probably in university or something, I would imagine.
This story is about absolutely nothing, but to me it
And the voice is AI generated, but I believe he talks in the end as well, so.
is a story about everything. I hope that as you listen through it, you find some of it to be relatable, at the very least. It's a long one, and has been 3 months of hard work to make. It definitely will be one of the last videos in the audio drama style, since I truly do think this is my last story to tell, but not to worry. I still have many other video ideas to come. Enjoy! You see, my parents were all about taking things slow and steady. They wanted me to have this traditional, old-school Eastern upbringing, even though we were living in a fast-paced Western world. So, for years and years...
The thing about that too, I think that's a pretty healthy way to go through childhood, is because as far as I understand from his demographic or his culture, it's very family orientated and much about hard work. So I actually respect that compared to Western ideals, which is basically like as soon as you're 18, you're out and you're just thrown into the world. And you forget about your family and just forge your own path, where a lot of Eastern, and pretty much every culture that I could think of that's not Western, is very family orientated. So I would say he's fairly lucky in comparison to other families to be raised this way.
I was always stuck in the hardest classes, and I wasn't allowed to hang out with anyone after school. Most of my teen years were spent in isolation even before the 2020 lockdowns, and were, in my eyes, a waste. This heavily stunted my social skills, something I'm still paying the price for today. When I got to high school, I loaded up on all these tough courses.
Interestingly enough, he basically was isolated, and COVID happened during a crucial period of his development, where for me, I got kicked out of like 2 schools, so I was homeschooled. So it's a little bit different. And my growth was stunted as a teenager because I was homeschooled. I would say like between like 6th, 8th grade is probably some of the most important times in terms of development, because of everything that's changing around you, kind of like your childhood to adulthood transition. And if you don't have the requisite social interaction, you're going to be behind. And that's what happened to me.
For me, a 7th grader in 2017, these higher tiers of the hierarchy were the furthest thing from my mind. I was content with my cringy pursuits, spending countless hours assembling Lego Star Wars sets and pouring my energy into my studies. The idea of romantic or social validation held little appeal to me, and I walked around middle school solely focusing on academic success. Nevertheless, as luck would have it, my priorities were about to be completely changed. I reluctantly...
So it sounds like this is like an introverted individual who just kind of does his own thing. He's kind of isolated by his parents. And even with that, he still doesn't have a desire to go and hang out with people. Yeah, we can kind of already see where this is going a little bit.
Signed up for a Spanish elective in the middle of 7th grade, even though I was hardly paying attention in class. I chose a seat at random on the first day of class and paid little attention to the looks of annoyance from my fellow middle school classmates. As the weeks passed, however, I began to notice a new presence.
So like right off the bat, you get that this kid basically is kind of in his own world and just doesn't really care, doesn't really see other people, and has his own sort of mental environment which he's in that doesn't really include other people.
In the room, a girl who had recently moved to our state, her desk positioned directly across from mine. At first I paid her little mind, my attention still firmly rooted in my textbooks and fantasy worlds.
If only he could have stuck with that.
But gradually, almost imperceptibly, something began to shift within me. She wasn't nearly as attractive as the most popular girls in my grade, but in my mind, she was enough, with brown, wavy hair and an incredibly pleasant personality. Besides, Juggernaut law reigns true, and I thought I might have had a chance with her. Whatever the reason, I found myself increasingly drawn to this mysterious newcomer, my heart racing and my palms sweating every time our eyes met across the classroom.
Oh gosh.
Over the course of the days, weeks, and months, my infatuation intensified.
So, you know what's the interesting part about it is he didn't even notice her until like several weeks or months into the school year. And this is exactly what happened to me when I had my first crush. But mine happened when I was in 9th grade. Well, actually, my first crush was in 2nd grade. But this one happened when I was in 9th grade. I also had a crush that was with somebody of the same assigned gender that I am. But I didn't really give that one much credence because of the social stigma. And plus, I was in a Christian environment at the time, so I wasn't allowed to have that. I had a crush on this girl when I was in 9th grade, and it didn't even really manifest until like months into the school year. I didn't even notice this person. I don't want to be mean, but this person was like not conventionally attractive. It was just some weird thing that happened with my brain. The adolescent brain, there's so many chemicals and so much weird stuff going on at that age. And all of a sudden I just had a crush on this girl for out of nowhere. And it tormented me for like a year. Literally tormented. And I never like stalked her or anything else like that, but I tried to like ingratiate myself in and I was kind of like this kid. I just wasn't really that social of a person. I had a network or whatever. I talked to people, but all of a sudden I was just completely like obsessed, infatuated hopelessly with this one individual. I basically tried to always put myself near her or whatever. Finally, I broke out of it, but it was like, actually, it wasn't a year. It was only like 6 months, but like, that was awful.
My once pristine Lego set started to collect dust on my shelves as I started to spend hours daydreaming about my crush.
Yeah, it's so sad too. Like if he just would have stuck with his Legos, he would have been so much happier. And the thing is that when I had that first crush, like I'm clearly asensual. I'm using a euphemism to not get flagged by YouTube. I had no interest in anything beyond like puppy love. It was like the same crush I had when I was in 2nd grade, except for I had more adolescent hormones. Yeah, it is funny how he doesn't really have a friend network, and yet he's obsessed with this one person. And it's not even like I want to be this person's friend. It's more like, oh, I want to hold hand. I am having really bad flashbacks,
Causing me to neglect my studies. I began to obsess over how I looked and would often lie in bed thinking about my response to her the next day. Looking back, it's clear that my sudden obsession with this girl was a manifestation of my own unmet needs, a desperate yearning for love, acceptance, and validation that had lain dormant within me for so long. I had unwittingly stumbled into my first crush, and there was no turning back. What I couldn't have...
And you know what sucks about it too is you don't have any choice in the matter. It just happens. And even if you're like the most introverted, socially awkward person in the world, you're basically thrown headfirst into this, and you have the first one-itis. And you know, it happens. I've had a couple of crushes, but like the last one I had was in 10th grade. And maybe it wasn't. I was in my senior year. But I didn't know how to talk to people either. So I've only had a couple, and thankfully that was it.
I've known then, as I sat in that fateful Spanish class, was that this girl, Penelope, would come to shape the course of my life up to the very moment I write this story. I couldn't stop thinking about Penelope, the girl I had just met in my Spanish class. Her smile, her laugh, the way her hair fell softly around her face.
Oh my God.
It was like nothing I had ever seen before. I tried to focus on the words on the page, but they seemed to blur together, losing all meaning. Penelope's voice echoed in my ears as her face continued to flash before my eyes. I knew I should be studying and knew that my grades were important, but in that moment, nothing seemed to matter more than the thought of seeing her again. Suddenly, a surge of confidence washed over me. I would talk to her tomorrow, I decided. I would find a way to start a conversation to make her notice me. I didn't know what I would say or how I would do it, but I knew that I had to try.
Dre, I don't hear any studying going on in there.
How do you hear studying?
But I could not get rid of the excitement that had taken over me. Why?
I wish there was a pill that young teenagers could take to like completely like eliminate these stupid crush feelings. For me, it was like one of the most traumatic experiences of my life, being stuck in this stupid crush. And like the thing is, it was never gonna amount to anything either. It was just a complete waste of my life.
Because I was going to see Penelope again tomorrow, and I had a new challenge to tackle.
Get back to studying.
As the final days of 7th grade flew by, I couldn't help but be amazed at how quickly the year had passed me. This was the first time I had looked forward to school. I had a reason to go.
The first time he looked forward to school. Like, this girl is seriously just rewiring his freaking brain. Like, this is like a tragedy. And like, if he ends up being blackpilled, it's no freaking wonder. Like, what his brain did to him, what his lizard brain and hormones, completely, he was just this happy-go-lucky kid, happy to study and play with his Legos, and then this girl comes along and completely just... And it's not the girl's fault, obviously. That's not what I'm insinuating. It's his own brain, his own adolescent brain betraying him. Like, and this is why therapy needs to be more available to kids in this demographic or in this age group, is because of crap like this. He's just hopelessly head over heels infatuated. He has no say. And like, he never showed any interest in anybody like this. And it's not natural.
It seemed like only yesterday that I was sitting in Spanish class, across from Penelope, and daydreaming about our future together. But now, as I flipped through the pages of my yearbook, I realized that my infatuation with her had consumed me entirely, making the months blur together in a haze of longing and anticipation. I still remember the last time we interacted just before the end of the school year. Penelope had signed my yearbook, scribbling a quick message and a smiley face next to her name.
Which he probably cherished and like looked at every day, I would imagine. And this poor girl probably had like no idea, and she's probably just doing her own thing, and she has no idea that this poor kid across from her is just like hopelessly smitten with her. And she's probably just like your average typical 7th grade girl. Girls do mature faster, so she's probably a couple years ahead, especially with the social things, so maybe even more than that. It's just bad in so many levels. Like this is just a disaster. This is a train wreck waiting to happen.
For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I felt my tiny subhuman heart skip a beat. But then, just as quickly as the moment had come, it was gone. Penelope turned away, her attention caught by something, or someone else. That's when I noticed Lucas, a boy I hadn't paid much attention to before.
There it is. I haven't paid much attention to before. This is an introverted kid, but now he has this one-itis and this chemical crush, and his entire world is topsy-turvy, and now all of a sudden, dun dun dun, enter adversary.
He was tall and conventionally attractive, with a quiet demeanor that reminded me a lot of myself. I had heard rumors that he had recently broken up with his girlfriend, but I didn't give it much thought at the time. As I watched Penelope laugh at something Lucas said, I felt a twinge of jealousy grab my stomach, the room illuminated only by the soft glow of a nightlight. I felt a sudden urge to share something that had been weighing on my mind. Austin and I didn't go to the same school, and we had only become friends through our parents' connection. My uncle had gone to medical school with his parents, but somehow, in the stillness of the night, I felt a sense of safety and trust that I hadn't experienced before. "Hey, Austin," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. "Can I tell you something?" He rolled over to face me, his eyes wide with curiosity.
"Yeah, of course. What's up?"
I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "There's this girl at my school. Her name is Penelope. And I think I might like her. Like, really like her." Austin grinned, his face splitting into a wide smile.
Dude, that's awesome. Have you talked to her? Does she like you back?
I shook my head, feeling my cheeks heat up with embarrassment. No, I haven't really talked to her. I get too nervous, but I can't stop thinking about her. He nodded, his expression sympathetic.
I get it, man. Girls can be scary, but you should try talking to her. You never know what might happen.
I smiled, feeling a sense.
Why are girls scary? Only reason why girls are scary is because what goes on within, the hormones in the brain and everything else like that. Also, what would have happened if he would have told his parents? I wonder if they would have brought him to take him to a different school, or forbade him to take classes with her because she was distracting him from his studying. I'm thinking about that too. But yeah, this guy's a good friend. I wonder if they're still friends, or if he got married and or got a girlfriend and just ditched him.
Of relief wash over me. It felt good to finally say the words out loud, to admit to someone else the feelings that had been swirling inside me for so long. Later that summer, I was still consumed with thoughts of Penelope. What people don't understand about being lonely is that it eventually begins to intrude into other parts of your life. As a child, I was always raised to believe that if I worked on something hard enough, I would eventually succeed. After all, whenever I studied my ass off for an exam, I passed with flying colors. Whenever I entered a science fair competition, I always got the nicest ribbon due to my hard work.
So we're dealing with a person who's above average intelligence too, obviously, or is just really good at studying. It doesn't always correlate, but I think we're dealing with and based on the quality of this video and the speech and everything else, yeah, I would say we're dealing with a very intelligent person, and yet he can't figure out a way how to deal with this crisis that he's completely helpless to avoid.
I figured if I spent enough time thinking about Penelope, I would eventually reach a solution. I spent hours daydreaming about how I could win her over, concocting elaborate schemes and imagining our perfect first date. Part of me wanted to confess the real reason behind my injury to my mother, to share the depths of my feelings for Penelope and the lengths I was willing to go to impress her. But honestly, I was too ashamed to bring up my romantic feelings to my South Asian parents, who
Yeah, they'd probably just take him out of the school. Again, context.
were more focused on my education than anything. And so I kept my secret that day, and have kept it up until today, where I've etched this memory into a tangible record for you all to hear. But even as I sit here writing this, I can't bring myself to regret it entirely, because in a way, that bike ride, with all its painful consequences, was more interesting than my life at that point. Years of falling into the same cycle of coming home, studying, and going to sleep, just to do it all over again. Only a month later, my final year of middle school began.
It is interesting, though. I like the way he put that. Basically, his life was on repeat, and then he meets this individual and gets this crush, and everything just thrown topsy-turvy. And he appreciates that aspect because even though all the pain and suffering that happened, it took his life on a different trajectory and influenced him forever. So I like the way he put that. Again, this is a very talented individual.
8th grade was different, as I found myself starting the year off vying for Penelope's attention. Never before had I been looking forward to summer ending so that I could see my crush.
I hated going back to school. I think I never had a crush over the summer either. I never went back to the next year and be like, oh, I'm happy to see my crush. I always hated going back to school. And he probably hated going back to school too, especially as an introvert. And yet, because he had this chemical stuff going on, he was just anticipating it. So you have to, I guess, appreciate the gravity of how caught in this love chemical matrix that he's in.
First week of class, I made sure to talk to her. As I approached her locker, my heart racing with anticipation, I noticed Lucas heading in the same direction.
Bum, bum, bum. His heart rate just spikes through the roof. This is like an anime or a manga.
Our eyes met, and a flash of recognition passed between us. We both knew what the other was up to. Hey, Penelope, I called out, quickening my pace to reach her first. I was wondering if you wanted to hang out together after school today. Penelope looked up, her eyes darting between Lucas and me.
Oh, hey, Dre. That's really nice of you to offer, but
Actually,
Lucas interrupted, his voice smooth and confident.
I was just about to ask Penelope if she wanted to grab some ice cream with me after school.
Lucas is an ass.
I felt my face burn with anger and irritation. Lucas always seemed to have the upper hand when it came to Penelope, and it drove me crazy. But as they say, hindsight is 20/20. Penelope bit her.
I actually kind of feel bad for this girl in this whole situation too, because even though our narrator is caught in the toxic chemical reaction, she's kind of the victim here in this whole thing. Because she's just trying to live her life, and she has these two boys like vying for attention, and one that's extremely awkward, and it's probably making her feel awkward too.
Lip, looking torn for a moment before a smile spread across her face. My heart sank as I watched Penelope link her arm with Lucas's, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I couldn't believe she had chosen him over me, just like that. As I walked away, I couldn't help but glance back one last time at Penelope and Lucas's retreating figures. Every Tuesday I would rush out of my last class, my heart pounding with anticipation. It was the day Penelope's friend had her after-school program, which meant I had a chance to sit with Penelope on the bus ride home. As I climbed the steps and scanned the rows of seats, I spotted her sitting alone, staring out the window. I made my way down the aisle, ignoring the snickers and whispers from the other kids. "Hey, Pen," I said, sliding into the seat beside her.
He didn't even ask, he just slid in and then asked. Oh, God. So bad.
"Mind if I sit here?" She glanced at me, shrugging her shoulders.
I guess not.
She replied, turning back to the window. I tried to strike up a conversation, asking about her day and cracking jokes, but Penelope seemed disinterested, giving only brief, half-hearted responses. From behind us, I could hear the other students giggling and making kissing noises.
So at this point, Penelope knows that our narrator has a crush on her, and she wants nothing to do with him. He's not getting the hint. And mind you, this person has never really approached anyone to be friends. The only reason why he's talking to this girl is because of chemical crush. Chem crush. I'll just call it chem crush for short. I think that's simpler.
Even though she never seemed to reciprocate my enthusiasm, I still looked forward to those Tuesday bus rides more than anything else in my week. It was a chance to be near her, even if she barely acknowledged mine. Looking back, I realize how one-sided and awkward those interactions must have been. But at the time, they meant the world to me. A fleeting taste of the connection I so desperately craved. One day, I noticed Penelope struggling with a math problem. Seizing the opportunity, I leaned over and whispered, "Damn, you're terrible at math."
Oh my gosh, she's doing the nag thing that some guys do with girls. Just insulting her to try to get a rise out of her. He is just... I wonder how long this is going to last. I know he says it, but like... How long has it been now? It's been like... all the way through summer it persisted. And it started in like, I think, March or midway through the school year in 7th grade. Now he's in 8th grade and he's still like hopelessly crushed. Or in a chem crush.
"Are you sure you don't need my help?" She glared at me, her annoyance evident.
Thanks, but I've got it, Dre.
I grinned undeterred. "Aw, come on, Pen. I'm just trying to be friendly,"
Well, maybe try being friendly without the nicknames and the teasing.
she snapped, turning back to her work. I sat back in my seat, feeling a bit of guilt. Deep down, I knew my behavior was stemming from a place of insecurity. Lucas was simply more attractive than me. I couldn't compete with that, no matter how hard I tried. As the years passed, and I gained more perspective, I realized how immature and cringe I was. Teasing Penelope, trying to get a rise out of her.
Yeah, and at this point, Penelope knows that our narrator has a crush on her, and he's just flailing at her, and she probably feels bad for him on some level at this point, because from what it sounds like, and based on maturity, he's a little bit behind and she's a girl, so she's ahead. So she's probably got like 2 to 3 years of like cognitive, emotional development over him, and he's just like flailing at her. So for her, it's probably like a kid, throwing puppy love at her and being mean, and she's just like probably annoyed, but also trying to let him down easy. You got to think of it from her POV. I know it sucks from his POV, and it makes her kind of look like the villain, but you got to look at it from her perspective as well.
Dude, guess what? I typed, one day. My fingers flying over the phone keyboard. Penelope said hi to me today. This is amazing.
She said hi to me, thus there's a major break. Oh my gosh. This is like Vietnam flashbacks for me.
Austin's response was immediate and enthusiastic.
That's great, man. See, I told you she might like you back.
Another day, my text was more subdued. I think Penelope looked at me in the hallway today, but I'm not sure.
Oh my gosh. Penelope looked at me, thus something meaningful. She probably did look at him and be like, oh my gosh, there's that poor kid who has a crush on me. Oh no, I made eye contact.
Or maybe she was just looking past me. I saw the symbol on my screen that indicated Austin was formulating a reply.
Don't overthink it, bro. Even if she just glanced your way, that's still progress.
And so it went week after week, month after month. I found myself looking forward to my texts with Austin, to the one person I could share my hopes and fears and dreams about Penelope with. And even though I still had...
I wish I had a friend like Austin in high school.
As the final days of 8th grade drew to a close, I realized I suddenly...
So now he's a year and a half into the crush, and he's still smitten with this poor girl. Like, this is long. Like, no wonder he's, like, doing so much reflection on this 6 years later, because he was caught in the vice of Chem Crush for a year and a half now.
Suddenly had a nagging desire to tell Penelope how I really felt. For over a year now, I had harbored a secret crush on her. Finally, on the last day of school, I mustered up every ounce of courage I had and approached her at her locker. "Hey, Pen," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Can I talk to you for a second?" She looked at me, her eyebrows raised in surprise.
Sure, Dre. What's up?
"Penelope, I kinda like you," I stammered, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. "I have for a long time now." Penelope looked at me, her expression a mix of surprise and awkwardness.
Oh, Dre. I'm flattered, but I don't feel the same way. I'm sorry.
I felt my stomach
She's letting him down easy, but she already knows.
drop. A wave of rejection washing over me.
Isn't that crazy, though, how this very intelligent individual is just completely blindsided by his own, like, chemical reactions to this person who's just a normal girl trying to do her thing?
But then, Penelope spoke again, her voice softer this time. Penelope looked at me, her expression a mix of surprise and awkwardness.
But you know what? I think it would be fun to go to the freshman year homecoming dance together next year as friends. What do you say?
My heart leaped with a sudden glimmer of hope.
Yeah, she's being so cool to him. She feels bad for him. And the thing is she's probably not even planning on taking him. She just wants to let him down easy. And she thinks this will be... She's a good sport. You know what I'd love is, like, if she found this video and she did one of these, like, oh, here's the story of me being secretly crushed on for like 2 years and how and how it made me feel. Just this is why I want to become an author, is because I have so many ideas of stories that would be so interesting from other POVs than the standard POV. This is very much a standard boy in love crush sort of thing. Or like a Lucas POV.
Really? I asked, hardly daring to believe it.
What?
Penelope smiled, nodding.
Yeah, really. It could be a lot of fun.
I grinned, feeling a rush of excitement and relief. That would be amazing, Penelope. Thank you. I had mixed feelings about our exchange. On one hand, it seemed like I had somewhat gotten my wish. But as I walked away from her locker, I couldn't shake the sinking feeling of rejection that settled in my gut. She only wanted to go as friends. There was a glimmer of hope, it seemed. Maybe I could change
So you're saying there's a chance?
her mind and get her to fall for me. When you're a kid, at least you have that energy to go, to keep trying. It's been around 6 years since then, and that drive, that urge to keep trying has faded away. All I'm left with are tales of my failures, which I'm currently hammering out on my laptop's keyboard, letter by letter.
I love this guy's writing style. Like, he could be an author if he wanted to. This is so good. And mind you, we probably have very different views on, like, the world. But just, like, I can appreciate his writing style and his talent. That's all I gotta say. Like, he might have some super toxic views, and he might, like, blame women or be a misogynist, whatever. You can't deny the talent.
I still remember the flutter of excitement in my chest when Penelope handed me the invitation to her end-of-year party. Or rather, she sent me a picture of the invitation upside down. I had to rotate my phone to read it. It was a simple gesture, but to me, it felt like a victory. I spent hours agonizing over what to wear, what to bring, how to act, but I'm looking back on it now and realizing, if you seriously need to practice how to be normal around girls beforehand, it's a wrap for you. When the day of the party finally arrived, I walked up to her front door with a mixture of nerves and giddy anticipation. Inside, the house was filled with music and laughter, the smell of food hanging in the air. I watched as Penelope flitted from guest to guest, her smile radiant, her laughter contagious. And even though I spent most of the party hovering on the edges of the...
You know, imagine, like, too, because he's, like, has the one-itis, if there's, like, an even more, like, attractive girl that's been, like, secretly admiring the whole time, but he doesn't notice her because he has this one-itis, and she's literally, like, the perfect girl, but he doesn't notice her. Could you imagine? Like, I'm getting so many ideas for writing materials from this.
crowd, too shy to fully insert myself into the festivities. I couldn't help but feel a bit mentally satisfied. Looking back now, I realize how much that invitation meant to me, not just as a symbol of Penelope's friendship, but as a validation of my own worth. I didn't really do all that much but keep to myself, seeing as Penelope certainly had more interesting guests than me to attend to. When my mom came to pick me up, I smiled, said goodbye to Penelope, and got in the back seat of my mom's Honda.
Did you have fun?
See, that entire thing, or that entire get-together, he didn't even interact with anybody. He just, like, looked and stared at... This is so sad. This is depressing. And the reason why he got blackpilled is because of his own brain betraying him. Like, animalistic responses to stimuli, and just being in a vulnerable age group and not being socialized. It's tragic.
In the beginning of freshman year, I found myself once again looking forward to classes with Penelope.
So this is almost year 2 of Crush now. He needs to have, like, day 500x of Chem Crush. Captain's log.
This time, she was laughing at something Lucas had said, her eyes
Oh no.
sparkling with amusement.
Sparkling with amusement, he's clearly in love, and I'm cast aside. This is like a Shakespearean play. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at my own joke.
I felt a pang of jealousy twist in my gut, wishing I could be the one to make
A pang of jealousy. Oh, woe to me. My crush is in love.
her smile like that. He often stole jokes I told him at lunch, as Lucas was mutual friends with my best friend at the time, Ned. I couldn't stand it when he took my clever, usually edgy jokes and recited them to Penelope. Of course, if I were to tell her that joke myself, she'd just roll her eyes and chastise me. The difference between getting scolded and getting a laugh was, of course, our looks. As the bell rang and everyone started...
Now he's getting into the looks maxing thing, like, oh, I'm nerdy, and I look a certain way, thus I have no chance. The black pill commences.
packing up their things, I gathered my courage and approached her desk. "Hey, Penelope," I said, trying to sound casual. "I was wondering if you maybe wanted to hang out sometime. We could chill out at my place." She looked up at me, her expression polite but distant.
Oh, hey Dre.
Great, this guy again. He still has a crush on me? Gotta let him down easy again, I guess. That's her POV.
It's really nice of you to offer, but I actually have plans with Lucas this weekend.
Why did she mention Lucas? Well, maybe to be like, hey, I'm already engaged. I have a boyfriend. Leave me alone. This has gone on too long. You need to move on. That's probably what she's thinking.
Maybe some other time?
I felt my heart sink, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, sure." As the months passed and our school homecoming passed, without me in the picture, I watched from the sidelines as Penelope and Lucas's relationship blossomed. They were officially together, holding hands in the hallways and sneaking kisses between classes. And with each passing day, I felt myself fading further and further into the background.
You mean fading back into what he should have been from the get-go? Like just his normal fading back into his normal personality, except for now he has resentment on top of it.
As the loser in this whole one-sided ordeal. As she walked away, I felt a sense of sadness wash over me. I had missed my chance with Penelope, and no amount of wishing or hoping was going to change that. She had chosen Lucas, and I was just going to have to learn to live with that. Everything comes to an end. Just recently, the day came when DBDR stopped making videos. There will be a...
So if he's a follower of DBDR and in that whole group, that's very much about like, oh, you know, I look a certain way, I don't have a chance, etc. I have a receding hairline, I don't have a chance. DBDR was a incel influencer, and apparently he got doxxed. And his channel got taken down, and it's affected a lot of people. I've never watched DBDR, but I've heard that he's very influential and like therapeutic to a lot of people who identify as incels, so...
day when Rehab Room stops making videos. There will even be a day when you unsubscribe from my channel and move on. Whether it's because you find the love of your life, or because you have more pressing matters to attend to.
He doesn't use the word ascend. Because you ascend, you unsubscribe, or anything else like that.
And I hope this day comes for many of you when you don't feel the need to watch my videos anymore. Despite this, I hope you still come back to visit sometimes. Similarly, I eventually moved on from Penelope, realizing it would never work out.
Question is, how long did that take?
It had been years since I last saw Penelope, and in that time, I'd faced more rejections than I could count. Every girl I went after, it was like I was trying to find a piece of Penelope in them, even if I...
So he's still, like, obsessed with his first crush.
Or not. Then, COVID hit, and just like that, I lost contact with so many people. I was stuck at home, trapped with nothing but my own thoughts and memories. And
so this is like a year and a half after this fiasco with Penelope. COVID hit, so he probably wasn't even fully over, and then like lockdown comes on top of it, and that's like a year of missing out on like any social interaction. Like, this is bad.
So much rage and anger. At this stage of my life, Penelope felt further away than ever, and honestly, she was one of the last things on my mind. But then, by absolute chance, or maybe it was just the universe messing with me, my latest crush turned out to be Amelia, Penelope's newest and closest friend. Before COVID...
Oh no. And Penelope's gonna be like, yeah, this guy is awkward and he had a crush on me and it was terrible.
all those rejections had left me feeling bitter and worn out.
Honestly, if I saw my first crush, and I don't know who I know who she is. Well, my second crush, my first official crush, I would try to avoid her at all costs. I wouldn't want her to recognize me because that's like PTSD, because it was terrible.
Vibrant, somewhat naive kid who had chased after Penelope with so much energy and determination was long gone. and in his place was a black-pilled guy who'd seen too much disappointment. You see, right at the very beginning of the pandemic, in July 2020 or so, I had come to understand the black pill in its entirety. Bits and pieces here and there had always made sense.
So for those of you curious, the black pill is essentially like Nietzsche's you stare into the void and the void stares back. The red pill is basically you figure out that women are a certain way and you don't have a chance and it's incel logic. And the black pill is essentially I give up. Like, this isn't going to work out, I have no chance, and I had lost pretty much all hope. At least that's my understanding. The red pill is like, okay, the game is rigged against me. I need to employ certain tactics in order to get access to relations. I need to, improve my Instagram. I need to looks max. I need to get hair transplant, or not hair transplant, but whatever it's called, where you fix a receding hairline. All this other crap to basically get access to this good. And black pill is basically like, this isn't going to happen for me. I give up. I need to find something else in life. Or basically, a lot of times black pill leads to more black pill. It's a slippery slope sort of thing. Oh, I give up on women, thus I give up on everything else because the system is rigged against men, and why even try? That's essentially one of the black pill things.
To me, but when the entire thing was just laid in front of me to read, it all just clicked. While Penelope had spent the next year and a half meeting new friends and getting a new boyfriend, somehow even more unlikable than Lucas, I spent that time reading up on looks theory and watching.
Yeah, and she dumped Lucas.
As I tied my laces and stretched my legs to get ready for the cross-country race, I turned around and saw a glance at Penelope for what felt like...
I need a cross-country running too. That's hilarious. I did cross-country in high school, and I hated it and I loved it. I hated it initially because it was really hard and I wasn't conditioned, but then we'd run into like the forest and go all these cool places and we did cross country and I really learned to enjoy it. So plus I love the people who do cross country. It's a different breed of people who do cross country than your average like high school people, but it's almost a spiritual experience in a way. And
I failed as always. I threw my muddy spikes off to the side as I watched the girls' race in its entirety. As I watched Penelope cross the finish line, her face contorted in pain and frustration, I felt a pang of empathy shoot through my chest. The sight of her bloody leg, the crimson stain spreading across her calf, transported me back to that summer day before 8th grade, when I had skinned my knee on the pavement during my ill-fated bike ride. Out of concern, I naturally began inching towards my former crush. But before I could reach her side, Brendan came bounding up, his face etched with concern.
Pen, what happened? Let me help you.
He wrapped his arm around her waist, supporting her weight as she limped towards the bench. I hovered awkwardly nearby, wanting to offer my own assistance but feeling suddenly out of place.
I'm fine.
Penelope insisted, her voice tight with pain.
I just need a minute.
As Brendan helped her sit down, I noticed Amelia approaching from the other direction. She made a beeline for Penelope, her brow furrowed with worry.
Oh my God, Pen, your leg!
She exclaimed, kneeling down to examine the wound.
We need to get you to the medic tent.
I watched as the two girls huddled together, Amelia gently wiping away the blood with a towel, while Penelope gritted her teeth and tried to smile. The sight of their easy intimacy, the way they seemed to communicate without words, made something twist painfully in my...
yeah, because Amelia is actually Penelope's friend and there isn't like that chemical crush element to it, and he's just jealous. It's like, oh, if only I was the person that she could cry on my shoulder and blah, blah, blah. He's still like romanticizing everything. And Amelia's just like, oh, my friend is hurt. I need to make sure she's okay.
My chest.
Dre, what are you doing here?
Amelia asked suddenly, her voice sharp with...
Yeah, and she probably knows who he is. Like, why is her crush just standing here hovering? Like, why is he here? Again, try to take it from her POV.
With annoyance.
Shouldn't you be with your team?
Just then, it hit me just how out of place I must have looked. I just wanted to make sure Penelope was okay, I mumbled, shuffling my feet. Amelia rolled her eyes, turning back to Penelope with a dismissive shrug.
Come on, let's get you cleaned up.
As they walked away, Brendan trailing behind them like a lost puppy, I felt a sudden rush of memory wash over me. I remembered the searing pain of the ground.
And like, Brendan is a dum-dum for not, like, doing what Amelia did because he's just probably has his own crush.
2022 was a bittersweet year for me. It was the year I graduated high school. Part of me was happy it was over, but at the same time, it felt like I had missed out on a lot. Overall,
I mean, that's COVID partly.
wish I had done more. I remember those whispers between my peers, talking about the hookups they had with each other or the big events like prom. But those days were behind me, and they'd never come back no matter how much I wanted them to. And besides, I had a new chapter of my life to look forward to. College. After all, everyone gets a girlfriend and friend group in college, right? Anyway, I spent that summer going to a few graduation parties and, of course, planning my own. On one of the few days I didn't have any parties to attend, I visited and
I wonder how his college experience is going to be, because it sounds like he got really good grades and he'll get into a good college. So I would guess that his interactions with females, because that's who he seems to be attracted to, either he'll just... There's two things. He'll either give up and realize the game is rigged, because that's what a lot of incels do, and it sounds like he's in that rabbit hole now. The incel matrix has him. Or he'll have better experiences, but still because he's kind of awkward, nothing will really happen. So that's my prediction. Like I said, I haven't watched the end of this video.
an abandoned mall with my friend Ned. In fact, the images I used for this chapter are photos I took 2 summers ago while I was there. Suddenly, a wishful hope began to formulate in my head. Hey, I just had a thought. What if I invite Penelope to my graduation party? I asked.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. He's still not over this poor girl. Oh my gosh. Like, this girl has completely... Like, not even this girl. This girl hasn't done anything. She's just living her life, but his own brain. And I'm going to keep reiterating it. I'm going to title the video based on this stupid chem crush thing. It's just ruining his life. Ruining his youth.
I shrugged, pulled out my phone, and sent her the following message on Snapchat. Hey, Penelope, I was wondering if you'd like to come to my graduation party next weekend. It would
She's going to say no. She's going to say thank you for the invite, but no.
be great to see you there. A few hours later, as I was getting ready for the party, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a reply from Penelope.
Oh, hey Dre. That's really nice of you to invite me. I actually have work that day, so I don't think I can make it. But congrats on graduating.
That was actually nicer than I expected.
A few hours later at the party, I was surprised to see Penelope walking in.
So
I thought you said you had work.
She actually showed up to his party. I wonder what's going on in her head. Maybe she's like, you know, this whole crush saga and this guy was such a part of my periphery and everything that happened. I'm going to give him one nice, or I'm going to just let him see me one more time. And maybe she has like some weird nostalgia of him like having this hopeless crush on her all those years ago. I'm just trying to see what her logic is to showing up. She sounds like she's just a freaking good person, being like, you know what, this will mean a lot to him. I'm going to do it. Penelope sounds, like I said, I would love a POV from Penelope.
Work today. She smiled sheepishly.
I did, but I managed to get off early.
As the party went on, I found myself getting pulled in different directions. Before I knew,
At least he actually had a party. It sounds like he actually had a pretty decent friend group. It sounds like he grew a lot through high school, which he isn't really letting on. Because he actually had a party, and like his crush actually showed up to it just to make him feel better. So he must have done a lot of maturing through high school that he's not getting said.
hours had passed, and I realized with a start that I had barely gotten a chance to talk to Penelope. Now it made sense why she had such little time to talk to me at her party all those years ago. When she was leaving, I rushed over to her. Hey, leaving already? She nodded.
Yeah, I should probably get going. But it was really nice to see you, Dre.
I smiled. Thanks, Penelope, that means a lot. And hey, I heard about you and Brendan. It's too bad things didn't work out. She rolled her eyes.
It's okay. He was kind of an airhead, to be honest. I just couldn't deal with it anymore.
And that was the last time I saw her before college.
If only the story ended there. That actually sounds super wholesome.
There were nights my freshman year that almost drove me to the brink of insanity, hearing the upstairs neighbors laying the pipe right above my bedroom. This juxtaposition of me being so alone yet surrounded by those having fun, living their lives, devastated me. And no one would understand. My roommates were both shut-ins themselves, never inviting anyone over who weren't blood relatives. And there was a time that I seriously considered blackpilling them. Imagine that. They would have probably laughed right in my face, and honestly, who could blame them? That school year ended with a bang. But in many other ways, it ended with a whimper. A sad, sad whimper. As I pedaled through the familiar bike path of our hometown, the warm summer and humid atmosphere of the park tickling my skin, I couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia wash over me. Beside
Nostalgia. The great devourer.
me, Penelope rode her bike. Her once wavy brown hair bleached and subsequently dyed to a cherry's red, gleaming in the sunlight. I was surprised when she had somehow agreed to my Snapchat asking her to ride bikes with me. I was sure she'd ghost me. So, how's college been? I asked, breaking the comfortable silence between us.
So he's actually riding bikes with her. I thought that was his imagination when I first heard it.
You're studying criminal law, right? Penelope nodded, her eyes darting between me and the path ahead.
Yeah, it's been intense, but I love it.
I smiled, feeling a swell of pride in my chest. That's amazing, Pen. You're going to make an incredible lawyer someday. Her head tilted towards mine, her eyes curious.
What about you, Dre? What have you been up to?
I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how much to share. The truth was, the past few months had been some of the hardest of my life. After a near-death experience brought on by alcohol abuse, I had spent some time in a psychiatric ward, trying to piece myself back together. It was the reason why I had decided.
So, a near death from alcohol abuse, that sounds like, I don't know if he's, drank all at one time, he went to a ward, but it sounds like he has some, depression issues, I would guess. I don't know, I'm not a psychologist or anything, I'm not qualified, but if he's abusing alcohol at that age after getting exposed to it, because I had a similar experience when I first drank, all of a sudden my anxiety was gone, I felt good, I wasn't depressed anymore, and that's why I got stuck in that rut when I was in my 20s of drinking pretty regularly, is because it made all my problems go away. But of course it created more problems than it was worth, because alcohol is the ultimate double-edged sword. So I'm just wondering if he's an addictive or depressed type.
To bother trying to reconnect with her in the first place. But as I looked at Penelope, her face open and expectant, I realized that I wanted her to know the truth. Even after all these years, I still wanted to be close to her, even if she would never feel the same way about me.
Well, maybe he should just try to build a friendship. It looks like at this point she wants to be friends, but he's still, even after all these years, is harboring some sort of crush.
Well, to be honest, it's been a rough year, I said, my voice quiet. I hit a bit of a low point. Ended up in the hospital after going to a psych ward for drinking too much. But I'm doing better now, taking things one day at a time. Penelope's expression softened as she slowed down to let me pedal up to her.
I'm sorry, Dre. That must have been really tough. But I'm glad you're doing better now.
As we rounded a corner, I caught sight of a familiar figure jogging towards us. It was Caden, the star of our cross-country team, still as fit and charismatic as ever. Penelope, Dre, he called out, waving. What's up, guys? We slowed to a stop and Penelope hopped off her bike to talk to him. I watched as they chatted and laughed, feeling a familiar sense of envy envelop me.
Oh gosh, here we go again. And Penelope's just like, oh, I'm out on a bike ride with my friend, and look, oh, here's another friend. Life is good right now. And he's just like, "Urgh."
Even after all these years, it was clear that Penelope still held Caden in high regard, certainly higher than she held me.
She holds you in a high regard too. She went on a bike ride with you and showed up at your graduation. What more do you want from this poor girl outside of being in a relationship? She sees you as a friend, and you can't be happy with that. You're still jealous AF. Like, I was expecting this to end way worse, and it actually has ended super wholesome, but he can't just accept that she sees him as a friend because of his black pill mentality or whatever.
I tried to push away the bitter thoughts, reminding myself that Caden had always been kind to me, even if we weren't close.
Yeah! And here you go. It's like, you should like this guy. You should be chatting. Like, you just saw somebody that has always been nice to you and you liked, but because Penelope's talked with him, you're still harboring these feelings. Unresolved. After all these years, this is unresolved. You need to resolve it. I mean, this is pretty recent. So maybe you should talk to your friend Penelope and be like, hey, I have these feelings. Or I don't know. You need to resolve this somehow. And it sounds like you can be honest with her, so she'd probably be honest back.
And besides, I had other things to focus on now, like Blair, the girl I'd met at my old job. She was the first person since Penelope who I'd truly connected with. The first person who made
But you never connected with Penelope until recently, when you got over your crushy poo.
me feel like maybe I could be happy again. Sure.
You hear that? Maybe I could be happy again because I'm in a relationship. You need to be happy first before you're in a relationship. I don't want to sound preachy, but that's how this goes. These black pill men and these men in the incel sphere think that women are going to make them happy all of a sudden. That once they ascend or once they get into a relationship, all their woes will disappear. And they're already in a rut. And they're trying to hook up with a girl to get them out of the rut. And the girls can pick up that you're in a rut. Until you're out of your rut, nothing's going to happen that's good. Or at least statistically nothing will happen that will be good if you're in a rut.
Blair and I had only known each other for a week before I got fired. But in that short time, I'd felt that same happiness I felt all the way back in spring 2017. Again, when I first laid eyes on Penelope. And as I watched Penelope and Caden, I realized that maybe that was okay. Maybe it was time for me to let go of the past and focus on the future.
Okay. It's come full circle. I got triggered over nothing.
As we said our goodbyes and pedaled away from the ineffable athlete, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. You know, Pen, I said, breaking the silence, I'm really glad we did this today. It's been way too long since we caught up. She contorted her face into a faux smile, as if a puppeteer had pulled either corner of her mouth toward her eyes, expressionless.
Me too, Dre. Hope to see you soon?
I nodded, feeling a real grin of truth spread across my face. Deal. And who knows, maybe next time I'll even let you beat me in a race. She laughed, rolling her eyes.
Yeah, for sure.
And just like that, she tucked her bike in her SUV and peeled out of the bike trail's parking lot. I saw her Nissan get smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror as I lit a Newport and placed it in my mouth.
No, you're smoking cigarettes. My man, those are going to be so hard to quit. No. Oh, gosh, not substances. You're too young to be smoking.
I sit here and I realize how much of my adolescence has just been wasted. I'm currently typing this on my birthday, and I just turned 20. My teen years were completely squandered, since I was never enough to find friends or a relationship, and all I have left.
But you had a graduation party. And it sounds like you and Penelope are on friendly terms. And you're only 20. You're acting like your life is over, it seems.
Left to cope is a silent prayer for a better day, a tomorrow that should have come 5 years ago. I am a shell of a person, driven insane over constant rejection. I feel like a
You're driven insane by your own mental health issues, it sounds like.
failure, and my head burns even thinking of it. I wish I could simply just think positively or believe in myself just a little harder, like all these charlatans taunt me by suggesting. If I had what they had, a stable relationship, social milestones completed,
I need a girl to be happy. There it is.
and a peaceful mind, I too would probably spew out the same nonsense. When I finished high school, I told myself I would make something of myself as an adult. I often get lost in fantasies of being a wealthy,
You're in college. You got into college. You have a supportive family, and it sounds like you have friends. But yet, you look at the world like it's all doom and gloom. And you're 20 years old. Imagine being homeless or living paycheck to paycheck like a lot of 35 to 50-year-olds do in this society. Imagine how they feel, and if they heard you talking like this, what they would say and how they would laugh at this. Like, you sweet summer child. I don't know. I don't want to lecture because I've really enjoyed this, so...
powerful socialite who made a mark on history, moved humanity.
Made a mark on history and moved humanity. Here's the thing. In 1,000 years, unless you're Julius Caesar or Alexander the Great, nobody's going to remember you. In 100 years, nobody's going to remember you. Life itself is meaningless, and it's all going to be forgotten. Humanity is going to be forgotten, and all of that. And you're so focused on achievements and getting a girlfriend or whatever that you're just not going outside. Oh God, there I go using the touch grass metaphor. Have you tried touching grass? No. But have you tried just smelling the freaking roses and enjoying life for what it is instead of being so preoccupied with the past and the future? Just looking at things the way they are now and realizing how much worse it could be. It's all I'm suggesting.
Forward. I always dreamed of being something to someone, but instead, I am nothing but a violation on this God-forsaken planet. Maybe everyone who laughed at me during cross-country practice, all those girls who rejected me, would then see that I had value. But no, I have done nothing.
So your value is based on other people's eyes. You see yourself through other people's eyes. And more than that, you see yourself through other people's eyes in the past.
But take the safe route. It took me all my effort, all my power to even lose my virginity. To have an important milestone like that normal, functioning people have at the age of 16 so late, is already a reminder of just how behind I am. It's like Maslow's hierarchy says, you need to feel safe and have a sense of belonging if you want to make it anywhere in this world. It's imperative that you surround yourself with others who have your back. But for people like me and so many others, we don't have that. All those movies and songs about relationships are completely foreign to me. The same way I would never understand what it's like to be born in a war-torn third world country. It is an alien concept to me, and I wish to understand it more than anything. Even if I got a girlfriend tomorrow, if Penelope, Blair, or Amelia came back to me, eager to actually get to know me, what good would it do? How could I be compensated for all that time I had missed out on? Every girl I know has already had several boyfriends before me, which isn't necessarily a good or bad thing.
So I'm going to go off on another tangent here because I might just release this whole thing uncut at this point just because I've commented so much. And my cousin just turned 44. And you're talking about regret through lost time. He spent basically his entire life under the influence of alcohol and struggling with alcohol. And he's being forced to sober up for his job and because he's gotten in so much trouble because of his habit. Think about the regret he has looking back on 25 years of alcoholism and being like, look at all this wasted time. Look at all these relationships that fell apart because I was an alcoholic. And he's 45 years old and he still has time to turn it around. But you're like, oh, well, all this crap happened in high school. Look how much I've missed out on and everything. Put yourself in somebody else's perspective. I think this individual spends too much time listening to these Blackpill videos and being in his own headspace and not really seeing a lot of perspective and also not being in the present at the same time. Looking back on the past with regret and looking on the future with trepidation and not being here and now. So At least that's my diagnosis of it. But yeah, look at my cousin. He has regrets, and he's 44. And his regrets are so bad that he's gone back to drinking because he simply can't face them. Not because he wants to quit. But the problem when you quit drinking is you have to look at your demons face to face, and you have to beat them. You have to overcome them, and for some people, it's just too freaking much.
They'd all be mentally ahead of me. I would simply blend in, a no one whose only value is a wallet or emotional comfort. Sometimes it feels like I'm too mentally damaged to recover. It makes me sick to my stomach, and I realize nothing will change. I wish I could start over again. As we sat at the local college bar, sipping our drinks and talking about Jake's aunt's DUI, I couldn't help but let my gaze wander around the room. Suddenly, I caught sight of a girl with wavy brown hair, styled in the same way Penelope used to wear it back in high school. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a rush of old memories flood through me. "Damn," I said, my eyes widening. "That chick looks like Penelope." Jake looked at me, his eyebrows raised in curiosity. "Penelope? From high school?" I took a deep breath. I had the biggest crush on her back then, I admitted, staring off into space. I mean, I was fucking obsessed with her. I turned around as Jake's eyes widened in
Still are obsessed with her.
surprise. "Really? Penelope?" I had no idea. Man. I shrugged, feeling a bit self-conscious. "I guess I just never found the right moment. Time ago, you've moved on, right?" I nodded, feeling a sudden heaviness in my chest. "Yeah, of course, it's just... Seeing that girl just now with her hair like that, it kind of brought it all back." Ned signaled to the bartender for another round of drinks, his eyes dead as always. "Bro, she's kinda crusty looking," he said, grinning. "But she beats that creature you f***ed the other day. Go ask her out." I laughed, shaking my head.
So he's ascended too.
"No way, man. I'm not that drunk. And besides, I'm pretty sure my Penelope days are behind me." I began zoning out yet again, only for the bartender to hand me my card and a vodka Red Bull, courtesy of Ned. I promptly forgot about Penelope's
Vodka Red Bull is the most college thing I've ever freaking heard. And I thought he's 20 years old. Is he like in Canada or something?
doppelganger and began chugging my drink. As I stumbled out of the bar, my head buzzing with the effects of the 10 cans of Angry Orchard I had, I was
10 cans of Yo, he's an alcoholic. If I had 10 cans of Angry Orchard, I would be comatose. I wouldn't be stumbling. I would be out. I hope he's kidding.
in a good mood for the first time in a while. I guess
I was in a good mood for the first time in a while. After 10 cans... I give up. I give up. Oh. Oh my gosh. My sweet summer child is becoming an alcoholic now, on top of smoking cigarettes. Oh gosh.
alcohol really is the best cope for an ugly guy. But
alcohol will destroy your life. It will get rid of the annoying things, the anxiety, the stress. It'll make life seem more fun. But the older you get, the worse its effects are going to be. And also, that crap is expensive. When I quit drinking, I saved $200 a month, and I wasn't even that heavy of a drinker.
But I shook him off, too riled up to back down. The two teens stepped closer.
And he's completely smashed and trying to start a fight. I don't think this is going to go well.
Their eyes mischievous. "The f*** you looking at?" The other one growled, cracking his knuckles menacingly. I mumbled something to the effect of, "Keep walking, bro. Get the f*** out of here." Honestly, this is one of the times I should have just been quiet. What happened next was a blur. One moment I was standing there, and the next, the two guys sucker punched me and ran off. As I write this, I'm still pretty pissed off that I basically got bodied by some 5'4" kid wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt.
Well, you were smashed and you had no reflexes and you probably were half blacked out. Maybe you'll take this lesson to heart?
I couldn't stop thinking about Penelope in that moment, even more so than the subhumans who attacked me. I remembered the day I cut my knee in middle school thinking about how to impress her. I also remembered the day of the cross-country race, the way she had crossed the finish line with blood streaming down her leg, her face contorted in pain. I realized that I was no different from her. I laughed it off as some other high school girls nearby yelled at the kids running away, even though my ego was still somewhat bruised over the fact that, again, I got bodied by literal high schoolers. As Jake helped me to my feet, his face etched with concern, I looked down at the blood on my leg as I kept walking into the night.
Alright, we've made it to the end of this video. If you're still here, congratulations. You've got the attention span of a f***ing Shaolin monk or something. Lately, I've been itching to use my real voice, and guess what? Today's the day. Well, almost. You see, I'm currently camped out at my parents' place, miles away from my studio mic at my
This guy's voice is fine. I like the sound of his voice.
As the reward for you diehard fans who stuck around, here's a look at what my newer videos are gonna sound like. I know that my voice sounds like a f***ing cat in a blender.
It doesn't. Like, my dude, stop.
But with some practice, I think these videos will only get better from here on out. Thanks for watching. And remember, even if my voice makes your ears bleed, at least it's authentically me.
This is a certified PSL classic.
All right, that's the end of it. This is by far the longest reaction I've ever done. We're at over an hour and a half. I'll probably cut a good chunk of this out, but I think my commentary is like 40 minutes. So this will be a fun one to edit. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.